Imagine waking up every morning relying only on motivation. Some days you feel unstoppable, other days you can barely roll out of bed. That's the problem with motivation, it's unreliable. But habits? Habits are automatic. They don't ask you how you feel. They just run like programs in the background of your brain. Psychologists say that around 40 of our daily actions aren't decisions at all, they're habits. Think about it, how you brush your teeth, the route you drive to work, the way you check your phone. None of that requires fresh motivation every single time. Your brain saves energy by automating repetitive behaviors. That's why the people who seem disciplined often aren't relying on sheer willpower, they've simply built systems. Here's the truth. Motivation gets you started, but habits keep you going. Imagine someone who decides to run a marathon. On day 1, they're fired up. But by day 20, when it's cold outside and their legs ache, it's not motivation that gets them running. It's the habit they've built of lacing up their shoes at the same time every morning. So here's a challenge. Instead of asking, how can I stay motivated? Start asking, how can I make this a habit? That tiny shift in mindset changes everything. Motivation is a spark. Habits are the fire that keeps burning long after the spark fades. The key takeaway here is simple. Don't build your life around feelings that fluctuate, build it around actions that compound. Each small habit is like a vote for the person you want to become. Over time, those votes add up and shape your identity more than bursts of motivation ever could. And speaking of identity, how exactly do habits form in the brain? Why do some routines stick while others fade? To answer that, we need to understand the psychology of habit loops, and it all begins with 3 powerful elements: cue, routine, and reward. Every habit you've ever built, good or bad, follows the same invisible pattern. Cue, routine, reward. This is known as the habit loop, a concept made popular by psychologists and behavioral scientists. And once you understand it, you can reprogram your behavior almost like rewriting software in your mind. Here's how it works. First, there's the cue, the trigger that starts everything. It could be a time of day, an emotional state, or even a specific environment. For example, walking into your kitchen and smelling coffee might cue the routine of brewing a cup. Or feeling stressed might cue the routine of scrolling through social media. Next comes the routine, the behavior itself. This is the action you take, whether it's brushing your teeth, eating a snack, or going for a run. Finally, there's the reward. Your brain craves this part because it decides whether the habit is worth repeating. Rewards can be physical, like a burst of dopamine from sugar, or emotional, like the sense of pride after finishing a workout. The fascinating thing is that your brain quickly learns to anticipate the reward. Over time, it starts craving the routine as soon as the cue appears. That's why smokers often feel the urge to light up when they see someone else do it, or why you might suddenly want popcorn just by sitting in a movie theater. Now here's the power move. If you want to build better habits, you don't have to change the entire loop. You just need to identify the cue and adjust the routine while keeping the reward. For instance, if stress is your cue and snacking is your routine, you could replace it with a 5-minute walk or journaling. The cue stays the same, the reward, relief stays the same, but the routine becomes healthier. Your micro-challenge. This week, pay attention to one habit you want to change. Write down its cue, its routine, and its reward. You'll be surprised how much clarity you gain simply by mapping it out. Now that we've uncovered the science of habit loops, the next logical step is tackling the habits we don't want. Because let's face it, breaking bad habits feels harder than building good ones. But psychology has a surprising answer. The secret isn't elimination, it's replacement. Here's a hard truth. You can't just erase a bad habit. The brain doesn't work like a chalkboard where you wipe something away and start fresh. Once a neural pathway is formed, it's there. That's why people often fail when they try to quit cold turkey. They're fighting against deeply ingrained loops. But here's the good news. While you can't erase a habit, you can replace it. Think of habits like ruts in a dirt road. The more you drive through them, the deeper they get. You can't suddenly make that rut vanish, but you can start carving a new path alongside it. Over time, with enough repetition, the new path becomes the default. Psychologists call this habit substitution. The trick is to keep the same cue and the same reward, but swap out the routine. Let's say your cue is boredom, your routine is mindless snacking, and your reward is a burst of stimulation. Instead of fighting the urge entirely, you replace the routine with something healthier, like chewing gum, journaling, or doing 20 push-ups. The cue and the reward remain intact, but the behavior shifts. Here's a powerful example. Researchers studying smoking addiction found that participants were far more successful when they replaced the act of smoking with something that gave them a similar sense of relief, like deep breathing exercises or squeezing a stress ball. They weren't denying themselves a reward. They were finding it through a different path. Your micro-challenge. Identify one habit you want to break. Don't just say, "I need to stop this." Instead, ask, "What reward am I really chasing? And how can I get it in a better way?" The moment you see the craving behind the habit, you gain leverage. And here's where the magic happens. When you start consistently replacing destructive routines with constructive ones, you're not just breaking habits. You're reshaping your identity. And that brings us to the next level. Making good habits stick, not just for weeks or months, but for life. Why do some habits fade after a few weeks while others stick for a lifetime? The difference often comes down to two things: starting small and shaping identity. Most people fail because they aim too high, too fast. They say, "I'm going to work out an hour every day," when they haven't exercised in months. That huge leap feels exciting at first, but quickly becomes overwhelming. Psychology shows us that the brain resists drastic change. It thrives on consistency, not intensity. That's why small wins are so powerful. A single push-up, 1 page of reading, or 2 minutes of meditation may not seem like much, but they build momentum. Once you start, it's easier to keep going. There's a principle called the 2-minute rule. It says that any new habit should be scaled down to take less than 2 minutes at the start. Want to build a reading habit? Start with reading 1 paragraph. Want to start journaling? Write 1 sentence. These micro-habits lower resistance, making it nearly impossible to fail. And success, even small success, creates a positive feedback loop that strengthens the habit over time. But here's the deeper layer: identity. True, lasting habits don't just change what you do. They change how you see yourself. When you run once, you've completed a workout. But when you run consistently, you start seeing yourself as a runner. That identity fuels the habit far more than motivation ever could. Ask yourself, who do I want to become? Do you want to be the type of person who values health, discipline, creativity, or growth? Every time you follow through on a small habit, you're casting a vote for that identity. One missed day doesn't erase your progress, but every completed action strengthens the story you're telling yourself. Here's your challenge. Pick one habit you want to lock in. Shrink it down to the smallest, most doable version. Then, instead of saying, "I have to do this," reframe it. "I am the type of person who does this." Watch how much easier it becomes to stick with. Now, even with small wins and strong identities, your environment plays a huge role. Willpower alone isn't enough. You need to design your surroundings to make good habits effortless and bad habits inconvenient. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Here's something most people overlook. Your habits aren't just a product of your willpower. They're deeply shaped by your environment. In fact, psychologists have found that environmental cues are often stronger than internal motivation. That means if you design your surroundings wisely, you can almost trick yourself into following better routines without relying on sheer discipline. Think about it. If there's a plate of cookies sitting on your kitchen counter, you'll probably eat them, even if you weren't hungry. But if the same cookies are hidden in the pantry and a bowl of fresh fruit sits out instead, your choices change almost automatically. The cue shifts, and so does the behavior. This principle is called choice architecture, structuring your environment so that the easiest choice is the best choice. Want to drink more water? Keep a full bottle at your desk. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it and put the remote in another room. Want to exercise more? Lay out your gym clothes the night before so they're the first thing you see in the morning. The same works in reverse. Make bad habits harder to do. If you want to cut back on social media, remove apps from your home screen or log out after each session. That tiny bit of friction creates just enough resistance to break the automatic loop. Here's a practical micro-challenge. Walk through the main areas of your day, your bedroom, kitchen, workspace, and ask yourself, does this environment make my good habits obvious and easy, or does it tempt me into bad ones? Even one small tweak, like moving your phone charger across the room so you don't scroll late at night, can lead to big results over time. Remember, habits aren't just formed in your mind, they're shaped by the spaces around you. When you align your environment with the person you want to become, you set yourself up for effortless success. Now we've covered why habits matter, how loops work, the secret to breaking bad ones, the power of identity, and the influence of your environment. But before we close, let's bring it all together with one final thought, and a challenge for you to take action today. At the end of the day, habits are the quiet architects of your life. They shape your health, your relationships, your success, even your sense of identity. Motivation may get you started, but it's the small, repeated actions that build the person you become. We've explored how habits work through cues, routines, and rewards. We've seen why breaking bad habits isn't about elimination but replacement. We've learned the power of small wins and identity shifts, and how your environment can either sabotage you or set you up for effortless success. So here's the big takeaway. Transformation doesn't come from dramatic bursts of effort. It comes from simple, consistent choices made daily. When you take one small action today and repeat it tomorrow, you're planting seeds that compound into a future you can be proud of. Think about this. Who do you want to be a year from now? Do you want to look back and see the same patterns, the same struggles, the same frustrations? Or do you want to see growth, strength, and habits that carry you forward even when motivation fades? The choice is in the routines you build today. Here's your final micro-challenge. Pick just one small habit from this video. Not 5, not 10, just one. Commit to it for the next 7 days. Keep it small, keep it simple, but keep it consistent. Then watch how that tiny action begins to ripple into the rest of your life. And remember, you're not just building habits. You're building yourself. Every action is a vote for the person you want to become. Stack those votes wisely, and your future will thank you. If this video inspired you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which habit are you going to start this week? Drop it in the comments, I read them all. And if you found value here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this with someone who needs a little motivation today. Together, we can build lives powered not just by fleeting motivation, but by lasting, life-changing routines.